Welcome to the 2026 North of Falcon 1 commercial breakout on March 18th, 2026. You guys were all present in the big room, so I don't think we need to go over the public meeting guidelines and etiquette, but we will highlight a couple things is stay on topic. Questions should focus on the current discussion. And this is not a debate. We are here to provide information, not to discuss grievances. Use the proper channels. Concerns, grievances, or broader issues should be submitted through our portal or public comment process. Respect the format. This is a structured session for questions and answers, not an open forum. And keep it brief. Be clear and concise so we can address as many questions as possible. And then our agenda for today is we're going to go over staff and attendee introductions.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. We're going to go over proposed WAC revisions and then limited participation options, the 2026 non-treaty season planning, the general schedule, and then proposed fisheries, and then the 2026 North of Falcon schedule, and then questions and comments.
Could I add a request and add an agenda item? So I understand the WDFW budget has come out and like other agencies, the department took a haircut. I think it would be interesting to know where those cuts, how those cuts, or if those cuts will impact kind of management of our fisheries. And I'm thinking, mostly the sampling, that's the ongoing sampling that's been going on in South Sound. So anyway, and any other.
Sure. Yeah, we can cover that at the end of the presentation. It's a brief statement, status.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks for that, Bob. All right, so the Puget Sound commercial salmon team, we're going to go and introduce ourselves. And then once we're introduced ourselves, we'll go around the table. We'll start with Colin, who's another WDFW staff. And then we'll go around this table all the way to other WDFW staff. And then we're going to go online, and Rebecca's going to call out any attendees online. And so we'll start with Mickey.
Yep. Mickey Aga, Science and Policy Lead.
We're going in this order.
Rebecca.
Oh, okay. Rebecca Halesto, Salmon Data Support Biologist.
Sam Bund, Puget Sound Commercial Salmon Manager. And then there's Christina Iverson. She is in the rec breakout right now, and she's the Puget Sound Salmon Manager. Sorry, I'm the Puget Sound Commercial Salmon Manager.
Class 8A, Puget Sound Commercial Salmon Monitoring Biologist. Colin Edwards, Frank Modeler.
Bob Kehoe, some vessel owners, Fraser panel, industry rep.
Fred Rankovich, Puget Sound Harvesters President, Salmon Commission.
Shannon Moore, Puget Sound Gillnet Fisherman, Bellingham.
Kristen Morfeld, Puget Sound Consider.
Dave Erickson, Gillnetter, Kitsap County. Home base is Kingston.
Ken Rodenberg, Bushland Enforcement, grievances.
I'm Steve Thatcher. I'm a reef net fisherman on the island, beach sink fisherman in the Hood Canal. Here for the Washington Reef Net Owners Association, and I'm on the Fraser panel.
Emily Pisha, I'm the book reporter for the Puget Sound and Coastal Patrol areas.
Jana Goulding, South Coast Marine Salmon Biologist.
Morning, everyone. I'm Matt Bogart. I'm the statewide Chumphink and Sockeye Salmon Specialist.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kirsten Simonson. I am the WDFW Hydroacoustic Monitoring Research Specialist.
And then in the back there, we got Barb.
Barbara McClellan, Coastal Fishery Lead out of the 6 office.
And then we have a few people online. Yi, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
The solution of modular frame modeling team, WDFW.
So that's a WDFW frame modeler. And then Jack, go ahead.
Jack is still here.
It's like, yeah, we're gonna work on that. Thank you both. Those are the two online.
Can they hear us okay?
They said they can hear us fine.
Okay.
That's it.
What's that?
That's it.
Yep.
Mhm.
Well, there's only 3 people online. Okay, so the next slide, we're gonna go over some exclusion zones and closures. And Quasi's gonna start these slides.
Okay, there we go. All right, so as you guys are plenty aware, our WACs have survived recodification. Our management areas have, are probably in the order of 50 plus years old for a lot of these. But Washington State's changed. Our geographic boundaries changed. The one that I always like to joke about is in Area 10 when we used to describe the Azteca that I grew up going to in Seattle. That hasn't been there in Ballard since the mid-90s. So we took a dive through 2 areas specifically for this North Falcon, Area 9A, Port Gamble Bay, with our Port Gamble co-managers, and then we're later going to get into Area 10. So in Port Gamble Bay, throughout the early aughts and into even I guess now it's wrapped up. The old mill site, the old upland mill that had been there since the 1800s, one of the Superfund sites, creosote, all that torn out, and is now gone through a pretty extensive remediation and cleanup process with the Department of Ecology. We had a couple described locations that reference areas of that mill site or just in general the old mill site. Us, enforcement, and Port Gamble tribe up there were like, hey, let's tighten this up. So what has changed? We've updated the northern and southern. We'll get to our southern area where boundaries and why the change. We want to best describe what you guys who are fishing are geographically seeing on the water. That makes it easier for interpretation from us on the management side, fishers, and for enforcement on who's fishing in open versus closed waters.
Quasi.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is currently in a proposal form right now. So it's still subject to revision if there are comments from the public. We are planning to propose this after discussions between enforcement from the Port Gamble tribe and from the enforcement from our agency, DFW. We've talked about these potential exclusion zone modifications. But again, we'd like to hear from the public, and as we go into the next meetings with the tribes, we're going to put this as a proposal forward. So again, feel free to comment as this public period goes forward.
So quick, are these changes ultimately going to be signed off on by the commission, or is this outside of that process?
It's outside of, go through our rulemaking process though, through North Falcon.
Oh, so it's part of the North.
Yes.
North Falcon rulemaking
We'll be
process.
part of the CR1 too. Right, next slide. Okay, so the first one, and this one is a very minor change. We have always referenced, and I do apologize that the image is a little dark. This is the northern closure, the entrance to Port Gamble Bay. It is a tribal closure. We also honor it as well. The southern line of that bay, which is the red squiggly line there, has always been a little off kilter because we used to use a geographic point of the end of the mill to a fallen tree on the other side to describe that area. In talking with enforcement, he said, let's just have a true east-west line. So anyone with a very simple chart plotter can just say, okay, as soon as I cross that line, I'm now in open waters, Port Gamble Bay. So we can see the previous description of this closure was those waters north of a line projected from the southern edge of the old mill site. I'm not going to read the longs out loud, to the fallen tree on the opposite side of the shore. So all we are doing is correcting the latitude to make it match the same latitude as the fallen tree. So both the eastern shore and the western shore have the same latitude. So we just have a true east-west line that once you cross south of there, you're in open fishing waters of Port Gamble Bay. And then this would be a draft proposal of how the closure language would read if it were in our in WAC. That's the big long WAC language to where it says that first sentence and then it spells out every individual area for like the next 4 pages. Right, go on to our. Yep.
I got a question. I fished Port Gamble for 17 years.
Mhm.
Before, let's say in maybe up until about maybe 7 years ago, the line used to be where the old mill site was, that line up above to the north, which allowed us several sets along that. The eastern side is reservation, so can't fish there, non-tribal can't fish there. But it allowed maybe 3, 4, 5 sets on the western side. So that's been taken away from us. Is there a reason why the line was brought so far south in the bay? So the tribe fishes, they fish the whole east side. They have
they have the whole east side.
Inside the old line, they have about 50% of the east side down to the southern end of the reservation. Plus, they have 4 or 5 sites on the east side outside the bay that they fish. And they used to not fish that typically on Sunday to allow some fish to be able to pass inside the bay, because when they're fishing outside the bay, it pretty much shuts off. It shuts off a lot of fish that are going inside. And then they also fish outside because they're also catching Holocene bound fish too. Okay. And chum as well. But when the line got moved south, it restricted a lot of area for us. So
when
I was hoping that
I stand up road. So
because I'm curious.
are you talking about this line going south or
That's correct. That line up.
This upper line?
It used to be up there. And then you can look back in the regs to see when it got pushed down. I think it's when all the closure areas went into Port Gamble, that line got moved south. And I guess I'm asking why.
So I've done tried to do a very fast rapid dive into this area because some of the closure, I was under the assumption that it was a tribal only closure. And as far back as I can find, this line has been between that old boat ramp and that southeastern point. So we haven't adjusted. The only point we've adjusted here outside of our historical kind of data set of these longitude and latitudes has been this one. So I will follow that up as to see if I can.
Past 7 years ago, but we used to be able to fish up. It used to be like off the dock over to the boat ramp.
Okay.
But it does restrict this for more opportunity. Do you guys have an acronym? What is it? PHUS? You don't want that Because basically you don't want fish to when those hatchery fish come into Port Gamble. When those fish come to Port Gamble Bay, you don't want them to wander, right, and intermix with wild stock.
Gotcha.
So the more opportunity you can give us, the more sites that we can fish inside the bay, the better we're going to be able to lock these fish up. It is a catch and kill terminal fishery.
And I said last time, that culvert sits 300 feet above. And all those areas to fish have been fished so much in the previous years. And we kill the fish while they're clean. You don't get dirty fish. They get killed as they come.
Okay, so I will look into that
So
diagonal northern
you could make
entrance
it
line
an
to-
east-west line. It could be straightened out, but if we could, and nobody's, I don't sit there personally because you can tell all the way across the channel. It's not the best spot, but inside on the west side, up into that bay, there's several sites there.
And they hang on the west side because they get the shade from the sun. That's the rest on the other side of the bay gets too hot. They stay in the middle shade comes later in the day, and they run around like they were in the fish pen.
Okay. Okay, let's go through the bottom portion, our next slide of Port Gamble Bay, and then we can ask another Port Gamble question.
Okay.
So the bottom one, if you guys remember, in 2019, we added the 1,000-foot buffer zone in front of all the freshwater entrances to Port Gamble Bay to kind of reflect the same 1,000-foot buffers we're doing in the rest of the canal area in front of freshwater entrances, such as like Dewado and Tahuya or something like that. With our co-managers, we in 2021 removed 2 of the mid closures. We came to just negotiations with Skokomish and said, hey, let's like you guys are saying, let's increase footprint that we can fish in. We're not really seeing much natural fish spawn in those smaller creeks. So we did and have kept the Martha John Creek, which is the one to our east, and Port Gamble Creek 1,000-foot buffers in pretty much these last couple years. Though we've kind of determined that this is very subjective based on tide. Where do you start that 1,000-foot buffer? I've been in that bay and seen that whole southern red area, like in the satellite image. It's obviously on a low tide. You can see the mud flat there. So is it 1,000 feet from what mouth? So we, with co-managers and enforcement, just kind of brainstorm some ideas to keep things very simple. Another true east-west line. And in highlighting, you can see the points that we've chosen to put forth in our proposal. And then in front of Martha John's, it actually kind of gets us a little more, opens up a little bit more of the bay. That line there is a north-northeast line, so between 22 and 23 degrees. The intent there is intentional. It's to make these pretty obvious. Even if you just have a compass out there on a small gillnet, you can just say, okay, that bear is about 22-ish degrees. I shouldn't stray past that. So yeah, very simple. You can see how the closure language will read. It's unlawful, all the words from the last slide. And then we describe in, the way we describe our areas, south and east of lines projected, and we give the bearing. So it reads very clear. We think this will just create pretty much like what we were going for, something that's very easy for the fisher to interpret, very easy for our co-managers to interpret, and for enforcement to interpret. So yeah, okay, so before we move on to area 10, any questions, Shannon, for Gamble?
I just don't. So Dave, is that a substantial amount of yardage you're losing there on the entrance?
So on the northern, we fished that for several years. We're used to fishing it now, but we would prefer to have it move further north to allow us some opportunity, because the bay does get full. When the fish come into the bay, you have a lot of tribal participation. And then we'll have, really there's maybe 5, 6 non-tribal that'll fish it.
Yeah.
It gets full to where there's really, you go there and there's no opportunity. It's not that you catch fish anywhere in that bay. There's selective spots along there where those fish will hold. And some of those spots are north of that northern line that you guys currently have. So it would open up more tribal opportunity. It would open up more non-tribal opportunities if we kept that open.
Okay.
When it comes to this southern line, I fish right at that southeast corner, right where your red line is. And it's, these fish, they come into the bottom of the bay and they hold it, they'll mill, but later in the season, they'll hold in the bottom of the bay, they'll hold over there by Martha John, they hold to the south. The goal is to capture them. You want us to catch these fish. So if we can have that line push, the one that your east-west line, that lower line there, when we push it down to, let's say, the beginning of that sand spit, and just have it go like east-west straight across.
All the way to the flag.
To the,
To the flag, because we haven't set there. These are critical spots because there's only so many places we can fish, and he can get in front of me, or I can get in front of me and just totally take the fish out. Because they said they do run it. This is very important this year because we have a vast amount of fish coming back like it was 10, 12 years ago. There's 12,000 fish going in.
If the goal is to protect what wild duck, I don't even know if there's wild fish that go natural spawn that go into these creeks. I highly.
There are, yeah.
It could be, and it's probably just hatchery fish that decided to go there and spawn. Yeah, I don't guess.
Most likely the origin
Yeah.
is that.
But, you know, so if the goal is to protect the creek, if we can move that line further south to allow us the opportunity to be able to keep our traditional fishing ground. And I don't know if the tribe would even allow this, because they have to follow these same closure areas, and you just took Charlie Brown's daughter's site and Charlie's site. And Duke's spot is up on the northeast boundary right next to the dock. And they just go ahead and fish it in.
Yeah.
So they fish this closure spot. They're not supposed to, but they do, and their enforcement doesn't enforce it. So, but we, traditionally we used to fish all the way along. We wouldn't go up into Martha John Creek. We would fish typically where that dock is, or just east of the dock. There's a big a weeping willow tree inside that bay. We used to fish off there. We used to fish all alongside that. We'd always keep in the lake half of the area open to Martha John Creek.
So Dave, one aspect, we'll keep this conversation going. I want to keep this presentation moving because we want to cover a few other pieces, but if you could connect with us, primarily Kit and Quasi after this meeting is concluded. Our plan is to discuss this proposal with the tribes tomorrow.
Yeah, okay.
So we would
maybe after the meeting we could sit down and kind of
just briefly talk about some of the challenges, that at least we can convey those challenges to the tribe as well.
Yeah, no, that sounds good, because as drawn, it takes that whole southern edge away from us. I agree with you. You want a nice easy line for him to be able to say you're good, you're bad.
Right.
One more question on this, and then we're moving on to the next
Yeah,
slide.
I'd say Dave's your go-to guy there. That's why I told him to come to this meeting. And the only other thing that I would mention, are you gonna put plywood markers out on the shoreline? Good.
Yes. So we
did that up in Tulalip. It works.
That's our hope. I mean,
Yeah.
and all of this is if there's private property, first, like, no, you can't put that there.
Yeah.
Then we're host. But
Yeah.
ideally, we love.
Markers are a good idea.
But
Yeah.
as Dave knows and I know, we use landmarks. If we say this tree to that corner, we all stick to it.
Okay.
We're not pushing anything to get anywhere. This is all open and this is all fish we're supposed to kill. It isn't personal.
There's a half a dozen of us that fish the bay, and if Kit goes out there maybe pre-season with us or open today, he's out there and he goes, hey guys, this is the line, this is what I interpret the line to be.
Yeah, we're good.
We'll make sure that the rest of the fleet knows.
And the only other question that Dave wanted to bring to the table was, when are you gonna open that fishery?
We'll get on to that. So we're gonna move on to the next slide.
Okay,
Let's go.
Oh, man.
all right,
Keep
where
rolling.
are we at?
It's just well done.
All right, so jumping over to Area 10. So what has changed? We're going to clarify the chum season closure zones and remove one of them that was misinterpreted last year as an actual closure due to how we had it written in our WAC. So this is a correct why the change, again, just like 9A, for the correct interpretation of closed waters for fishers, co-managers, and enforcement. Slide. So the first one, this was the same thing, misinterpretation, and left in the WAC. However, it was waters that our co-managers had believed that we potentially were still fishing in. So the current description is during our chum management period, we have an additional chum seasonal closure line, and that's from the waters of Elliott Bay, east of the line from Alki Point Lighthouse to 4 Mile Rock to the north on Magnolia. So it buffers out Area 10 away from the Area 10, Area A line. and the closure will read as the proposed current description. This currently lives in WAC 22354 080. It is just an area that has in the last several years kind of lacked attention, and we do want to clarify that that buffer is in place. Our co-managers do expect it to be in place for this coming 2026 season. Next slide, please.
That's all closed waters in that area?
Yes. So the Area 10 Coho and Chum seasonal closure, this has been in WAC, most likely erroneously, probably a hang on from when we did recodification and took a deep dive through the WACs back in 2016, 2017. The red line in this image represents the Apple Cove Point light to the Edmonds Breakwater light. That is the Area 9, Area 10 line. The President Point to Point Wells line is currently described in WAC. However, as you guys know, we don't use that line to designate closed waters for our chum fisheries. So the intent of this modification is to remove the President Point to Point Wells line from our WAC because we don't close the waters before Kingston and Area 9. A lot of these closure lines were with the intent of staying off of more of a mixed stock of coho back when we had directed coho fisheries. So any questions on our Area 10? These are the two large ones that we are tackling this year.
And for clarification, there was confusion, again, like Quasi noted, in season. So we had a few fishers reach out to us about these closure lines and we currently don't have the maps for the 9A closures and for the 10 specifically for some of these issues in our pamphlet, and we're going to add that this coming year. So these maps will be in our pamphlet.
Yep.
But that yellow line won't be on the new map.
No, honestly, this one caught me by surprise. It's President's Point. Like I could see the old image from our regs from way back, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that was when we fished coho.
That was, yeah,
And so
back in the days when we had a directed fishery.
yes, so yeah, caught me off guard that it was still described.
But I
black.
never remember it taking a jog like that. I thought it just went straight across.
It goes down to the traffic buoy.
Yeah, okay.
We might fish coho as well, right? We might get a coho down.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right, next slide. Yeah, no questions. Okay, we're done. Daily fishing hours and soak time. So for this slide, we wanted to clarify our fishing windows across the applicable areas. This is also an area that's up for discussion as we go into North Falcon tomorrow with our co-managers and for this morning with you guys. So we have heard some proposals as far as any gear overlap in areas 10 for our purse seine gillnet. Fred, you and I were talking about that. Any start and end time fisheries that we can, or sorry, start and end times in the canal that we can adjust to better work for the fleet versus work for our regulations. But we are stuck within some limitations. So within area 7A, we are stuck to that 45-minute soak time for first mesh in to last mesh out. That comes from biological opinion with U.S. Fish and Wildlife as well to keep us off marbled murrelets, and same thing with the bird webbing that we need in our gillnets. Moving over to the canal. The canal is a daytime fishery for our gears. We do have the kind of dusk to dawn clause in the biological opinion for marbled murrelets using those waters. Same thing with the 1,000-foot buffer on the eastern shore. A lot of this has come from our biological opinions with our federal counterparts to stay off of ESA listed birds.
Yeah, go ahead.
And one thing that I would really like you to look at is on that, in that Hood Canal, daylight savings time fishery. The gillnet fleet loses an hour on that change. We go from 7 in the morning to 8 at night. And then we go from 6 in the morning to 6 at night. So if we could shift that and get that hour back and just go from 6 to 7, that would be something that you could look at there.
We can do that.
Yeah. And then I'd also mentioned that our mornings that we lose when we overlap the same fleet there. I mean, that hour that we lose there is pretty important to us, and I don't know. I don't believe there's been conflicts because of fleet sizes that we have now. So if we could take a look at eliminating that footnote 13, I believe it is, and hold on a second, I'm not done. We gotta wait a turn, okay? And another thing that maybe you could look at is on our 10 and 11 fisheries, if maybe we could shift that time from 5 in the evening to 9 in the morning to 6 in the evening to 10 in the morning. If that would be something that might be looked at or talked about, discussed with the tribes, or if that's something, and we're not gaining more hours, we're just
shifting.
We get that morning a little bit, that change of light a bit there. We still get the evening, so
We'll definitely look into that.
So yeah, we had mentioned that you had mentioned that in the other room.
Want to go on record.
Yeah, now we have it on record.
That's it.
We'll should change the light. It doesn't give you much time.
Right. And I believe we had a request from John McDonald as well, similar topic on the time issue. It is something we review. We know that the gear conflict, we added an hour overlap this past year. Didn't see the conflict occur. Just something you could review. I don't know, Bob, you had your hand up, but then Shannon.
Yeah, I mean, I think, this has been a long-standing issue, but others have brought this up. The gillnets get 2 days opening, Saints get 1, typically. So, I mean, in the instance where Saints have 1 day, Saints would strongly prefer not to have an overlap. It's nothing new. We're just kind of, yeah, leave it at that.
Thanks for that, Bob.
I think these proposals are really good, but on the morning I've noticed in the last few years, even on our first starts in 10 and 11, we are running into a big overlap with the tribal gillnetters being out there. And I mean, I can leave Kingston, we got first opening, we're headed, and we go out there and all the way from Monroe to Skip Point, there's no sets because the tribes are still fishing, and if there's fish, they go really late into the night. And so the morning, normally you don't see them out on the grounds, and they stay late at night. And so that is our window of opportunity for the next real fish movement is to change the light in the morning. And that extra hour is a big deal, because if you do catch a good set, you have to pick them, and we have to get them up. And that's why we do need more time, because we pick each fish by hand and we're slow. That's just the way it is. We harvest at a different rate than other groups. So, but yeah, I've noticed that overlap of the tribes fishing, where we've been fishing on the east side a lot more than on my normal Skip Point and all that area. So that's all. the mornings it's worth that extra hour. It's a big deal.
Okay.
See, Christian.
Yeah, I wanted to, look at the bullet point. The bottom bullet point where you got the biological opinion. I don't recall that being an hour and a half. I recall it being an hour. And I was at the table when we had discussed putting bird webs in our net, just to stay on the ground. So I don't recall an hour and a half. Chris?
And I think that I'll dig.
Check on that.
I'll
Yeah.
check on that.
Yeah, look way back in the regulation, an hour and a half is, I think that's, not correct. Just put it down.
Just kind of along the same subject here is if the marbled murrelets are a big concern. So we use a bird strip, but the tribes do not use a bird strip. Has there been any pushback from WDFW from the tribes that try to get them to use bird strips as well to save the birds? If it's a concern, we should all be using bird strip, right?
We haven't issued that concern, but it's up to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and so on reporting, if there are issues, I think the interception, because of the time, has not created such an issue, but it is a concept we could talk about for sure. Thanks. I didn't know that was the case, so thank you.
I have a question for Bob. Do you know if you've got conflicts with the tribal gill netters in the morning when you guys go?
I guess it depends.
Yeah, I'd check on that, you know. You
But
might be
I don't know.
pointing the finger at the wrong fleet.
Although, not sure what we can do about that, Shannon.
Yeah.
If it is the case.
Yeah.
They fish when they want, so.
Yeah.
I mean, Shannon, I can tell you, anecdotally from having our research boats on the
Yeah.
water and that earliest before the open bell, we're trying to deploy our observers.
Yeah.
We have not encountered much what we would consider purse seine gillnet overlap.
Yeah.
It seems like the purse seines are really tucked in to Skiff and Yelmont Point, and as you know, a lot of them are there the night of the fishery, anchored up, so they kind of hold their spot, prohibiting a gillnet from really kind of setting where they are. So yeah, maybe that gets at maybe your question some.
All right, next slide. All right, this next slide is going over what you all love and want to talk about. Kit, do you want to lead this one? Or do you want me to start?
No, I do. Well, heard concern for the last couple of years on methods fishing and that. We talked about last year, but there is a federal rule in due to sound that requires a light be attached to the furthest end of the gillnet at night. So we're really, in my opinion, that allows us from regulation for it to allow like a J hook or anything other than fishing a straight line at night. We can't override the federal rule. It is what it is, but it gives us, there is some opportunity for us to look at what we can do during daylight hours. So talk to a couple of you. I appreciate the feedback we got from Skip Fleet and the importance of having a hook in your net, and how we put that together. So I just want something that's I want to have kind of an incremental approach. We've had the language for a long time. They get driven us and giving us new fish in a straight line. I don't want to go too just open up to everything, but just kind of do an incremental approach. So I would say value feedback got that's critical. Appreciate Fred kind of talking to me about like, hey, the drift nets already have buoys on there marking the nets, so can we utilize that without having to get more equipment? So that's what I was trying to incorporate here with this proposal. So something that enforcement can see it enforced, folks on the water can hopefully understand what we're trying to get at. The skip skill nets, you guys aren't currently required to have any smaller A1 buoys on there. For us on the enforcement side, is to be able to, if we're looking at allowing a JF to use and be that speed enforceable, so that's also going to include the wording there for anyone to lose feedback from the net. Try to keep the same percentages when they get drift gill net on what that would look like to skip gill net. And it's not quite exactly 100%, but try to keep it round numbers. So that's our proposal there. I mean, I can read exactly that's it.
Yeah, I got a quick question. How much is the fine for using a hook or net?
It's big enough that I can see your boat.
If you don't have a number? Or is the federal offense?
No, it's a
Class 2 misdemeanor.
Yeah, it's a misdemeanor or a most misdemeanor. I'm recollection, but it's oftentimes set up by the court, like literally penalty.
Like, is the ticket coming from you or a Washington state coming from you?
It would be our officer site.
Can you look up how much the ticket would be?
I can tell you it's $5,000 a year in jail for both.
Yeah, or that's federal. That's
Washington state. That seems a little excessive. Most of my taking my boat would be a little excessive.
Yeah.
We have fished this hook forever.
Yeah.
It is only way we get productive money out of our nets. We don't hurt nothing. We've done it forever. There's only been 5 tickets over 30-some years.
I won't go with that number. I can't verify that, but what we're trying to do here is I'm hearing what you're telling me and trying to put them providing that allow it for this healthcare stuff.
That's the way you have that, kid. That's like you could have that hook on both ends of your net, right? That's correct.
Yeah.
So the way I read it, it's 100 feet. Is that what I'm reading?
On the skip gill net,
Yeah.
and then the drip gill net is just using the existing buoys you have in there, not having the end of your net, the double buoys going past the first one there. So
that's a 50-foot hook. Yeah.
Would
Because our buoys are every 50 fathom. Both fathoms, that'd be a 50-foot hook. Yeah.
So will we have to make a proposal to change the state rule to make it agree with the federal?
No.
So this what we're proposing here on the J hooks would be for daylight hours only. So you can do it. That's the proposal right now in the state. The federal, we can't change that. The feds have to change that, and that the federal will require the light at the first end of the net is at night. I forget if it's.
That's a Coast Guard regulation.
Yeah. So
real quick, the WAC that shows this rule in there is ours. And I believe I have a proposal to amend that through the state rules. It's I have the WAC right here for the amending, repeal, and adding a rule to the WACs. So if we can amend that rule.
Yeah.
To just give us a year or two.
Which rule are you referring to? Which rule?
The line at the end of your net.
Yeah, so it's the rule that has not setting your next to survey.
Oh, no, yeah,
It's the WAC 2234 140.
So there's the WACs are the state rules. The federal rules, I think it's like the Coast Guard venue. It talks about in Puget Sound, you gotta have a light at the end of it. And that Coast Guard or the federal rule doesn't talk about hooks or something like that. It's just like you need to have a light at the end of your net, the furthest end of your net from the recollection. So that's separate from the state here. We're trying to align the state's wording with the federal wording. We could in different places in WAC, we sometimes reference like you can't violate CFR for the federal, can't violate CFR or whatever.
Yeah.
Point directly to that. We could do something similar here, but I feel like it may just be easier for reader comprehension for like basically summarizing what the federal says. So I think we're trying to get to the same place here.
Yeah, no, but however it goes, we change a WAC with an RCW, which is an appeal or a reprimand or whatever we have to do. If we have to pull the rule all the way up, nobody sets their net in a circle. That would have maybe been a danger in 2,000 gill nets, but there's only 200. Nobody would set in a circle the round hole fish now. That's not how it's done. We don't even hardly see each other.
So yeah, like Kit said, I think we're both headed in the same direction here. This is a stepwise process.
Let's table,
let's table
this discussion.
let's move forward here.
Thanks, Shannon.
Yeah, one more thing first. We still have that, where you put in there, last year with the, like, when you're setting at night with the wind, you know, in case you get alone.
Yeah, I have
not
something
getting
there.
it, you're hanging in your net and you end up getting a hook and it goes with a high wind, right?
That's still in there.
Okay.
Yeah. The weather conditions.
Okay.
Yes. All right, next slide. All right. Another possible proposal is to whack 223.54.180, and it's the ReefNet logbook and electronic reporting, and we're considering electronic submission requirement of ReefNet logbooks via email. And the reason for this is because last year we received a lot of late logbooks and they did not match what was on the fish tickets. And then go for it.
I'm looking right at this here, and I meant to make a comment. This free Fish Washington app that you're using for the sport fishermen, it seems like it would be an incredibly good tool for our quick reporting.
We are looking into using electronic reporting in the next coming years. It will just
not just, I mean, the quick reporting's always been across the board one of your best tools to, you know,
yes,
give us more time. And this is just the way, I mean, the way I heard this app was set up too. If you're not even in, you're in an area of no reception, if you click on it and put it on there, as soon as you get into reception, bingo, it's gonna go out. You guys will get it.
Yeah, right now, I believe Coastal Crab and Puget Sound Crab have electronic quick reporting.
Yeah, we'll do and prawns and shrimp.
And so we're looking into that and implementing that whack into Puget Sound commercial salmon.
And when we direct market too, we're always involved with quick reporting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever you choose, make it simple.
On the
Nothing's ever simple, Shannon.
separate cost. Sam's talked about, yeah, we have the watch sticks for prawns and crab and stuff and do salmon and ghost and it's been a work in process, but it's pretty slick. So I'm excited about the opportunity that being after firsthand. I think a lot of this cases is eliminated the need for quick reporting because it's working right and the information is right.
Well, on our trip limit, could be a great tool too. To see go bingo, I caught my fish.
Agreed.
I'm going in, you know?
Agreed.
Done deal.
Yeah, and a quick reporting is a little separate than ReefNet logbook reporting.
Okay, but you were talking about
Yeah.
instead of electronic, I was meaning to bring.
No, it's great. It's great. Do you have anything to say, Steve?
With the logbooks, is it just you would submit your logbook form via email?
Yes.
There's the form that you would fill out.
I think we're kind of looking into both options of like an electronic form that you can just fill out and submit. That would be the ideal option, I think, but we're looking into both of like requiring it sent through email.
Just for me to go, what, when it's not matching, was it the counts, was it the ticket numbers, dates? Where was the issues that we had with the not matching?
I'll let Emily speak to that.
Okay, well, I will definitely.
Yeah, and will you also ask them like, is it feasible for the ReefNet fleet to fill out an electronic form and submit it?
There's only 10 of us, I would assume so.
Okay, all right.
I would assume that the answer is yes.
Yeah. And if you have any suggestions or anything, just make a public comment and we look at those.
The other piece, Steve, is during the sockeye season, you know, again, we're working with razor thin margins, and Miguel, that's also asked about just the time on the water and how we can ratio out between the gears to ensure we have balance and equity. Is including the reef nets in our limited participation registration process. So we just know if you have 8 fishers or 9 fishers present or 10, we can equitably share it.
Yeah, that, last year I was surprised when we weren't, and it's just because of how the existing wax were written.
Right.
For the limited participation, so
Mhm.
I don't think that, doing this pre-season and mid-season sign up. Do that.
Yeah, and we also noted you had commented on the coho opportunity too, being shifting because of the number of folks being available to fish.
We have comment on the coho. You want it? now, or-
Well, we can take that later. Yeah. Go ahead, Chad.
So, it says consider electronic submission. So what are you looking for there? Fish you're supposed to catch and fish you're not supposed to catch?
So this is just for ReefNet logbooks,
Yeah.
and they already fill out a paper form
Right.
logbook. And before it had to be sent by mail, and so we're just looking for it to be required to be sent electronically. Or we make that paper form electronic and require them to submit that form. So that's
Put their sock eyes on there and their clipped, no,
in coho.
and their cohos,
Yep,
clipped or unclipped.
yep,
All right,
and chum, I believe.
all right.
Yeah. And then we have a question from Jack online.
Yeah, if you saw your question, Jack, feel free to unmute yourself.
Oh, yeah, thank you. As I'm thinking particularly in the fall when we're fishing, maybe daily for a week or two there, sometimes we have some decisions to make weather-wise and tide-wise as to how many fish we're going to leave in the pen for the next day and so forth and so on. Or are we in a position where, for one reason or another, we can't get fish in that same day? So those things kind of come in too, and we have to kind of guess on what we're still having alive in our pens overnight and things like that. Make decisions this way, especially knowing all of the mix as far as clipped and unclipped. It keeps us busy trying to think what to do, and I hope that isn't part of the reason that they don't match up the way they should.
Thanks, Jack. That's helpful. This is really as we start to get close to that limit that we set to gauge, what that ratio is looking like. We understand that there's challenges like that, keeping fish in the pen overnight. And, the other piece is the submission time of the logbook. If it takes more than a week to get to us physically, that makes it challenging for us to get an update. So that's where we want to speed things up just a little bit, but not create too much of a issue for you guys.
Yeah, so,
Okay, thank you, and we'll work on it.
Clarity on.
Yeah.
Is at what point, like we bring the fish onto the boat and they're swimming in a live pen. On a given day, as Jack just said, you might kill half of them and take them into the beach nearby or whatever.
Mhm.
And then the other half would be still alive, and we should still release them the next day.
Mhm.
So, in my opinion, is that those fish aren't technically landed until they're killed. And I just wanted to make sure that, what's the state's opinion on that? I mean, because it's very difficult for us to actually give counts of fish that are swimming in the tanks that are accurate. And if the fish were held overnight live and then sold the next day, they would, another fish ticket. would be
Right.
generated.
Well, if
Yeah.
I say if that's a hard one.
I think it's with landing to line with the ticket.
Yeah, so if the next day you're gonna release them, that goes with the next day's fish. Is that what you're asking?
Just that the fish ticket for the first day would only show those 50 fish that were actually killed and landed
Right.
on the beach, not the fish that was
Yeah.
taken in the boat and were alive.
Our intent, again, like we said initially, is to line the logbook with your ticket. So, and ensure that ratio is within a reasonable bound. So I think, yeah, that's where we're headed is when you land the fish, then.
Landing the fish is when they count.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Good.
I know what you're asking though, because we asked for released for coho, what was released. And so I see what you're saying. You land the fish and you're putting on the logbook what you landed, but you're not necessarily putting on what you released because you haven't released them yet.
Yeah, because they're not.
I won't use the word term landed, say what you caught, because.
Caught.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, but see, and I think that's the point we're making is that landed is the one we want to show on the fish ticket.
Mm-hmm.
What we caught is a larger number if you
Yeah.
caught fish that are held on your boat overnight.
We'll think about this one.
Yeah,
That's a good question, though.
yeah, because I think I sent you a picture. They're swimming.
Yes. 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 Okay, moving on to the next slide. All right, these next couple of slides, we're gonna go over WAC revisions for limited participation. And there's a lot to take in here for all the different WAC proposals that we're looking for limited participation. And I'm just gonna walk through these at a high level, and afterwards, we're gonna send out the presentation and the recording so you can take more time to absorb all of this information, and any, comments or suggestions we can talk about at the end of the presentation. And then also, if that goes too long, there's always the public comment process where we look at those comments in season during our WAC revisions. And so for WAC revisions for limited participation, there's 3 different slides. And this first one is just to go over revisions to clarify the LP WAC and improve it. And so this year, preseason application submission as a condition of participation, applicants must apply before the deadline to be placed on the in-season registration list. So just to clarify, you have to apply preseason to be considered, to be able to apply in season. Late preseason applications added to the end of the preseason list in the order that they were received. And then also, if in-season applications are received late, then, sorry, let me rephrase that. If preseason applications are received late, you're added to the bottom of the list, but we have to have 7 days of process time to be able to add you to that list. So previously, anyone that was late, we would try to get them in right away so they could fish that week. Looking at staff time, that is not really feasible. And so we're going to try to propose rewording that so there's staff time to process those preseason applications and put them in the list. We're also going to clarify language around randomly ordered registration list, which confused a lot of people last year. I got a lot of feedback because what it is the preseason list that you fill out that gets randomly organized, and that's your random registration list for the year. And that's what we called the randomly ordered registration list. So we're going to clean up language around that so it's less confusing. We're going to clarify response time requirements for the in-season application and define applicant status, whether they're active, inactive, or they've been removed. And for that in-season application, to clarify that response time is we're looking closer into the fisheries, right? Like 24 to 48 hours before the fishery opens. Rather than last year, it was like you had to apply, I think 9 days or 7 days before a fishery technically opened. It was due that Monday before the following Sunday that the fishery opened. I know it's a lot to digest. One of the things of the preseason application is removing the vessel ID and vessel name requirement. And this is to give fishers time if they lease their license, right? They haven't even leased their license yet, maybe. So it's time for them to, gives time for them to lease their license in season and then assign a boat. Also, a lot of people will fill out the preseason application and they don't even have an active license yet. So it gives them time to get the license activated and then also assign a boat to that license number. It's just last year I got a lot of comments from fishers saying that they didn't want the vessel ID as a requirement for the preseason application because a lot of people haven't decided what boat they're going to use to fish for that season yet. All right, next slide. And then the second part of the LP WAC is kind of going over the balance of effort. And so we're just going to clarify that we're going to put reef nets in there for Area 7 to require a preseason application for sockeye and potentially coho fisheries. We have to explore that more and see how that would work. And then we're going to clarify when limited participation does not implement a catch or effort limitation. So we're just not going to trigger LP. Then the preseason registration list will replace the in-season list. So anyone who signed up preseason, they can all go instead of restricting the fleet. And we're going to clarify whether area preference selected in the in-season survey locks a fisher into one area for that opening. So you'd be excluded from other areas that are simultaneously open. And I'm going to go over that more in some other slides when I go over what the survey, in-season survey could potentially look like.
So that's not a clarification, that's a change, right? I mean, that's something different than last year.
That is a change. A proposed change. And again, the exclusion piece is the challenge we ran into this past year where fishers that registered for the limited participation opportunity in South Sound did not go for that opportunity. They registered, were selected, and then went to Hood Canal. And this had for both purse-seines and gill nets. So ultimately the underlying challenge here is how do we keep that in check? If we offer a limited participation opportunity, if it's not viable, then we shouldn't be, running it. Or we need to figure out, like Sam is doing with this preference of where you'd like to fish and figuring out the actual fishers that would like to fish that and providing a limit that works for them. I think folks have talked about the limits not being adequate enough for economic viability. So that's another piece to this puzzle that we're trying to figure out.
And then go ahead, Christian.
It was on that last page where you were talking about removal of vessel ID and vessel.
Yes.
I think you're being too loose. I think a person shouldn't be able to register for a fishery unless they've got a valid license for that year and a boat all ready to go and not burden you with the fact that they don't know who they're gonna lease their license out. I think it needs to be a full package and then they come to you and they register.
So for the in-season application, that is a requirement, just not for the preseason.
Even the preseason, they should have their license and their boat, and they should have it figured out, and when they have it figured out, they'll call you and say, I'm gonna go fishing. I don't think you should. That sounds like a can of worms for you. I don't, that's my.
Thanks for that comment.
You've got a lot of shifty gill netters out there, so I'd be careful what you do.
Well, it's the same process we did last year and it worked, so. We ended up not using that information last year, basically, because it wasn't reliable. And then the last thing is we're going to remove area 7B daylight coho from the limited participation program because we're not implementing 7B daylight coho for the schedule. And Quasi will go over that later, so you can ask questions.
We don't have to register to fish cohos in Billington Bay, that's what you're saying?
Correct.
Good. Was that necessary?
Yeah. All right, next slide. Yeah. All right, the third part of the LP WAC that we're looking at is some clarification to maximize available share. And we're looking at to maybe clarify what happens when a fisher doesn't respond to a limited participation opportunity. Fishers who do not respond to the in-season survey may lose list priority for that opening or move to the end of the list. So that's one of the options we're looking at. To clarify, fisher accountability is a non-response to an in-season survey is they forfeit that week's priority. It's not permanent removal. It just preserves the preseason standing for future openings.
Sam, so all these say clarify, but the intention here, these are proposed changes that we've heard from the fleet that we are considering.
So when you say clarify, to me, that means that I'm before a fishery, let's say sockeyes, let's use sockeyes for example. So before the fishery, you're calling it a survey where I somehow connect to the department, say, yes, I'm going.
Yeah, the in-season form survey. I should clarify.
Registration or survey?
You can call it registration, you can call it survey. In the WAC, it's registration.
Yeah, so that's gonna weed out all the guys that just sign up and don't go, right? That,
They can still sign up and not go.
but if they don't
Respond.
If they don't respond, then they're gonna miss their,
verify,
yeah.
Yeah, if they,
then you can manage the fishery better.
we
gonna-
could,
Is that the idea?
Go ahead, Sam.
we've looked at different avenues of what we could do if someone doesn't respond. That's different than saying no, right? No is just saying, I don't want to fish. No, thank you, not that area. Not responding at all, we could possibly move them down the priority list, so they'd be at the bottom of the list if we ever have to go in season, and maybe there's a boat limitation of the number of boats that can fish here.
So let's, just one more comment or question here. So let's use the sockeye fishery as an example. So if a guy doesn't verify it, let's say he did everything else except that he didn't verify that he was gonna go. Okay, that means he's out of that fishery for that period, that week.
Correct.
Okay,
And then move to the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
For any other future time we
Yeah.
go into limited participation.
so this, I think, is a very good management tool. I really do. And it allows the real fishermen to catch what they got coming versus the guys that are pretending to be fishermen, don't show.
Well, I mean, our intention here, is to weed out, to get to the fishers that are on the water ready to
Yeah.
go, right? We want to maximize the opportunity for the
Yeah.
guys that are there, not for somebody who's out of town and
Yeah.
will be there in a week. But still registering. So
All right,
we might add that to the in-season registration is, are you currently in the state of Washington? You know, I think that's a pretty valid point. Or are you currently, coming down the coast right now and won't be here for a couple of days? Because the issue that we've had with some of the fishers, is your share is cut short by somebody who's not even in town.
right.
So, our intention, and we're gonna move that to potentially a text platform registration, still with the same survey/registration, but really closer to the time of fishery too.
Well, good. Whatever you can do to tighten up the process, though.
So let's say the last year's sockeye fishery, if you allowed 300 fish per boat limit. By doing this, you'll be able to change it at the last minute. You know exactly how many boats first in season. You thought you're gonna have this many pre-season, but you're gonna have this many actually 24 to 48 hours before the fishery said, yep, I'm going. Then you'll be able to estimate how many fish you will be able to take.
So
if we're on a limit.
once we have that finalized list, then yeah, we will then split it up between the vessels that have responded to us.
Is there a time frame on there? Is that still like 48 hours before the fishery occurs?
So that's what we're trying to figure out is the logistics of the time frame.
Yeah.
If we have this text service that goes through, it would speed us up quite a bit. So
And
we're trying to work out.
And on the next note, what we're also looking at is what Bob suggested last commercial breakout session is to clarify how catch limits are set via the in-season registration submission, including like a threshold and how the fisher inputs the information. So this year we're kind of looking at when we ask you what area preference you would like to fish, or if you're interested in fishing that area, is to give you what the limitations would be in that area, whether it would be a boat limit or if it would be a catch limit and what that catch limit would be.
Repeat that? What did you say?
So one of the things we're looking at is to have a form that when we ask you, hey, do you want to go fish chum week 39? If you say yes, the next question will be, what area is your preference if there's two areas open at the same time? Here's the catch limit. Are you still interested in fishing with this catch limit?
You can be restricted to one area or the other.
We'll go over that. Yeah.
If might do have any fun.
We'll go over that. And I think this last one we kind of already went over, so I'm gonna skip the last bullet point.
So one other point, Sam and Bob, you brought this up last at the kickoff, is that the run sizes are changing potentially every few days. The Fraser panel, that would change our share internationally. We're gonna this year, and we'll go over this. Matt can also go over it too. In terms of opportunity, there likely will be TAC at a P50 level. It's going to be a very short timeline, so it's going to be pretty rapid, right? We're going to see this opportunity fire off what we think is viable. It could be a full fleet opportunity if there's enough fish available in our share, and then within 48 hours, respond and tell us you're on the water, you're ready to go, and we get the fleet out there for that opening. Again, just seeing how the escapement goals have been set by Canada, it's going to be again a very short timeline.
It's gonna be compressed.
Again.
Yeah.
We're going to fight that at this next, not fight it, but we're going to discuss it a bit more in detail the next April modeling meeting about how many days we can get on the water for the US.
Your pads on your helmet.
We'll take all the gear with me.
When you set your regulations on this whole LP stuff, does it have to be the same in like 7 and 7A as it does in the lower sound, like the canal and 10 and 11? I mean, it's
in regards,
a legal question, I guess. Like
in regards to like each area is treated with the same treat. Like, what do you mean? Can you clarify?
I mean, is it like it seems like up in the San Juans up there, it's fleet size, and you're for sure going to be on some type of LP type thing. It seems like with.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's honestly, it's a good question. Our intent is not to go to LP. We only want to do that when it's absolutely necessary.
Right.
Our intent is to go to Canada and say we have modeled our full fleet fishery and the available effort that's what we go to our preseason modeling with. So if like our representatives, our industry reps come and say, hey, we look at an effort of 20 gill nets and 15 purse seiners, we're going to put that in the preseason model. And if that's a green light in the preseason, that might be a green light in season if we see the same run size. So it doesn't necessarily mean we're going straight to LP. It's really, this is where like things might change from week to week, and we have to revert to a smaller margin.
Just so like last year that was the whole registration, everything was pretty much set the same in 7A as it was in 10 and 11. It was all the same.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. And so moving on to that is just kind of going over the limited participation process. So just to clarify everything is that, so this year it'd be the same as last year. You submit a pre-season LP application online for each fishery. And we'll go over some of that because I think this year we're looking to change the form a little bit to make it easier. And we're going to try to move the preseason deadlines closer to when the fisheries open to give people more time. And then if an LP is ever triggered in season, if absolutely necessary, then we would send an in-season registration form 24 to 48 hours before a fishery. And then you all would submit your in-season form within 24 to 48 hours before a fishery. And then we would basically post online what those lists are and hopefully email everyone as well. Yes.
So the pre-season registration, it kind of has windows. I forget when it was, but I think it was last year. I was doing it up in Alaska. Is there any way we can? I mean, my boat's licensed and I'm ready to go right now. Can we just start the pre-season registration? You guys just have it.
We have to wait for the rule-making process to be done and all of our WACs to go through that process for us to even post that online, because we're changing a lot of information in the WAC and then how the preseason application will be laid out. And then once that has been processed and everything has been approved, then we'll post it online.
Yeah.
I would like to do it ahead of time too.
I mean, do we have, is that gonna be like in June then probably again?
Yeah, exactly.
And then
I think it's like June
you
12th.
send out links. I remember last year email worked out.
Yeah, and it will be basically now, last year we created a limited participation page for WDFW. All the information would be on that page again.
Okay. All right.
So on your triggers, do you have like triggers in will you have triggers in area 10, 11 and in 12 as far as we move on to into the season, say the runs are good, say we're down to 100,000 THC, do you have triggers put in for LP? Because I mean, our concern would be that if you let a full fleet go and all our quota gets caught before our schedule runs out, the gill netters aren't going to have we're going to lose our fishing days. So do you have, I mean, are you, is that a consideration where you are planning? So when it gets down to a point of, you know, if the harvesting power of the same fleet could take the whole rest of the quota, that
Yeah,
get stuck with nothing.
we've definitely talked about that.
So again, our goal here is to fish to share, right? Number one, and maintain the historic balance ratio of cash between the gears. The triggers we have for LP are in, we've maintained those in South Sound. I think we're going to discuss with the Hood Canal tribes tomorrow about, are there challenges that have occurred this past year that have created, like you're saying, a lack of balance between the gears or between the state and the tribes for opportunity. And so are there potential triggers? But again, that being said, every time we go through with the fishery management decision, we try to maintain the historic balance between gears, at least for our state fisheries. What we saw happen last year at the tail end of Hood Canal, where the same fleet went out and then we didn't have an opportunity after that, that does pose a challenge for sure. And I think, but the The other piece to that is, are we fishing within a bound that is reasonable based on the abundance that's actually there? And I think the issue is that maybe the ISU is the problem, right? Is the in-season abundance estimate is wrong. And inherently it should say there's a bit of error and we got to then manage a fishery within that error. So we're going to talk about that in more detail with the tribes in the coming days, and then come back to this table, and maybe there might be a trigger that we discuss with the commercial fleet.
It's not like, you know, it's something that you have to go like as in season, because I mean, okay, then you're gonna know, like, when we start, and this isn't, I'm talking about lower sound here in 10, 11, and 12. You're gonna have a pretty good idea what the gillnet, what the size of the gillnet fleet is going to be. And you have a pretty good idea of what our catching ability is, even on a good, you know, on a good, even if you overestimate it. So do you use those numbers in your calculations as far as like making sure we get through the end of the season on that? Because I mean, you know,
so for every opening, Fred, we look at a projection from your catch rates and from the per se catch rates to ensure that both gears get an opportunity, and then it operates within the available share. The issue is that the share decreases obviously as the season progresses, as we start to catch and take away the share, and if the abundance estimate doesn't change, and the issue is with Hood Canal is we haven't been able to agree to an upgrade or a downgrade in the Hood Canal chum abundance. So what you saw last year is that, you know, we started taking away that share, and then it did end up ending the season early, when traditionally we may have spaced it out a little bit more. But yes, we do take that into account every time we provide an opening. We look at your catch rate and we look at the projection. We say, can we safely operate within that bound to provide you the traditional opportunity and along with purse seints. But we do recognize, again, the challenges here that you've put forward. Yeah, Bob.
Yeah, just a quick question. So is the actual proposed changes to the WAC available yet? Or is these are summaries, these are kind of concepts that you're thinking about, and then you're gonna put pen to paper?
So yeah, exactly.
Correct.
These are concepts for the fleet to comment on. And we don't want to get to specifics in terms of inking anything.
Always devils in the details, right?
Because again, these are pieces that are maybe controversial to some of the fishers here. So we want to, again, provide some time for folks to digest it.
So I think it would be helpful to, I think it's confusing, no offense, Sam. But there's a difference between clarifying an existing practice versus changing what was done last year. So I think it would be good just to, you know, highlight, okay, what are the changes? This is what we're doing differently, as opposed to just kind of cleaning up the language. Or I think so. Then I think from my perspective, I would focus more on really the changes, and so
I think in North of Falcon 2, we'll have more of an idea of what those changes look like.
Okay.
We'll be able to present more clearly on what those are.
And then one more, kind of sorry about this, but so this does not need, these changes don't need to be wrapped up down in Portland in the last day of PFMC, or do they?
So we'd like a solution by PFMC2, but no, we'd go through a comment period. So we're going to put the change forward.
That's what you did last year, right?
Yeah, and so you will have another chance during the CR 102, 103 process to comment.
Oh man!
And then at the last minute, like we said, these will get finalized into June. So there is a stretch after PFMC2 where and I think what we did last year too is we'd make the revision to the WAC, and then it gets submitted through a public process. So you will see ink to paper exactly where it's redlined and changed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that came out with the draft regs, notice comment period. It just seemed to me that the rule was pretty baked, I mean, it was just like, this is, so I would ask, to have some more flexibility and not just, kind of shut the door and then check the boxes as far as the notice of comment, just a request.
That makes sense. It's challenging reading the
No,
web change in like a rapid fire, like, hey, what are your thoughts?
I think it's gonna take
Yeah.
a lot of thinking about it.
Yeah.
All right, next slide. So again, we're just going over our 3 different options for the in-season registration form or survey. We presented this last time. We just want to hear back from you all during the public comment period of which option works best for you. And again, option 1 would be 2-way SMS in season. So basically, and option 2 would be a gov delivery text to the fleet. And then option 3 would be a WDFW phone outreach. So basically the last year, what we did was option 2, is we sent out an email, we sent out a text with a link to the form, you filled out the form and submitted it. The only difference between option 2 and 1 is instead of us sending the link out and you complete the link, is option 1 would be you respond through text versus a form that requires internet connection. And so that's
we talked about this last meeting. And
yes.
Didn't you get some pretty? I think there was a consensus. I don't know.
There was a couple people that said 2, option 2. There's been some people that have made some public comments about they prefer option 1. Some people prefer option 3.
Well, I mean, what if this group?
What is the difference between 1 and 2?
So the only difference between 1 and 2 is a text message. You would respond through text versus clicking on the link, opening up the form and filling it out and submitting it. The survey would kind of be through text, like, do you want to fish week 39 for chum? Press 1 or 2. One yes, 2 no. You would press 1, yes. And then it would ask another question. Press 1, 2, or 3. And then the next question. So it'd be through text versus clicking on a link, filling it out, a form online.
And in number 2, you would have a record, right? There would be objective, there would be
1 and 2 would be both a record because we're looking at platforms that can basically handle SMS texts through on the back end. It would be an Excel or a record, just like number 2.
Does anybody in this room like the phone idea?
I hate my phone. I don't think I hate almost.
Calling in?
Maybe we can move.
Yeah. I mean, really, yeah, I think we've heard from folks, it's like 1 or 2. But yeah, here's some other.
So on that topic is I just kind of went through a list of the 3 different options and the staff time required, the participation certainty, the license level tracking, upfront setup and speed for staff, what is maybe the best fit, documentation for regs, whether it captures a catch limit or not, and speed of the fleet response, and then captures an area preference if someone wanted to, if we had multiple fisheries open at the same time, could it capture that information of what people prefer? And kind of looking at option 1 and 2, they're equivalent about for staff time and all of the other fields. The only really option that doesn't work for WDFW is the phone calls because it requires such high staff time because you have to manually go through phone calls and talk to people, and then you have to manually enter in that data and information. And so basically the documentation is very weak in that sense because of manual entry. And this is just something all for you to digest and look at. Green is it's good, it's easy for us to process. And then yellow is there's some hiccups along the ways of like, now we're looking into you responding within 24 to 48 hours. That kind of limits our time in making the lists. And so there's certain aspects there that are limitations. But mainly red is weak. It's hard for phone calls and those processes. Any questions on this?
Do they vote, well, like 1 and 2 just basically say, give you a okay, completed, confirmed?
Yes.
Type thing on there?
Yes, we are looking to make sure there's a confirmation that, hey, your response was received. Thank you.
What is your mediums like on your upfront speed? Is that a staff thing there? Medium survey?
Yeah, it's basically, we're right now working with our IT department to look at other platforms and maybe specific platforms that work for this. And upfront, it would be work to like create this platform so that it works in season. And that IT department would have to set up certain things upfront for then it to work in season. And that's mostly just dealing with contacts, information, and phone numbers and email addresses and linking that to everyone's license number. And then also the surveys, like pre-designated surveys that have already been created, and that all of that build up for that program. Does that make sense, Fred?
Kind of, sort of.
Kind of, sort of. It's all IT jargon, programming stuff.
What do you guys prefer?
So I could say my preference, I'm leaning more towards text. I think just having better two-way communication with the fleet that's faster. And maybe there's a future here where we could do a two-way communication on the day of the fishery too. Are you on the water? Yes or no? It's a simple text. It's not like complicated. Submit something through an online portal.
Yeah.
It's a beep
kinda like
us.
So then what about, we talked about other commercial fisheries. I think it's the crab fishery, right? Where there's some sort of reporting.
Wautex. Yeah.
Have you kind of like, kind of looked into how they do it and what they're, talk to the crab folks, the crab managers, and maybe they can give you some insight about what works or what doesn't work.
Yeah,
it's a different process than the limited participation thing. They're not really using it in that way. It just the Wautex takes the place of the old school paper fish tickets. So the land, it's the electronic.
Oh, so it's just like land, the automatic.
Yeah.
It's pounding.
It's the quick report.
So it's not like you're registering to participate.
No, it takes place of the paper fish tickets, and my recollection too, I think Kevin probably talked more for the shrimp side of it. I think it takes out the need for quick reporting.
Yeah.
Because you still watch text.
What about the mechanics, Fred, for registering in Bristol Bay? Is there anything comparable here, when you, like if you want to go from one district to another?
I mean, it's a call in to your, call into your camp.
Drop your car.
Switch me over. And then they take care of it. They have people who do that. Your registered agents.
They're pretty established over there with like a group of folks.
I see.
We don't have that level of staff in here.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not $40 million. $40 million.
I mean, one of the things I talked to our IT department is they are looking into this. There's no promises, but looking into maybe customizing something specifically for this limited participation. So I would just say the future looks bright, but who knows how long that will take.
Gotta wear shades.
We want to make a platform just like the recreational groups have.
Yeah.
That works for the commercial groups because, I mean, yeah. Go ahead, Shannon.
Is there a chance you could do 1 and 2 together?
No, not really.
I don't have a smartphone,
I know that.
and that's gonna be.
I was gonna say, hey, I got one for sale. I just got a new phone.
I have another follow-up. The timing for the registration, I actually have a completely different phone than I'm using in Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, unless I could give you that phone number too, which is dedicated.
We'll go over that.
Yeah.
I have a slide on that.
We did.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We've heard this concern as well. We're gonna,
Yeah.
we would address that.
Next slide, please.
Let's keep this meeting because we're 20 minutes out here, guys.
Yeah. All right. So this is kind of like a flow chart of what our in-season registration form would look like. So basically you would enter in your license number, or maybe you wouldn't, depending on the platform we have, you might not need to enter in your license number. And then the first question would pop up. Are you interested in fishing chum on October 25th? You say no, the survey ends, done. If you say yes and one area is open, survey is done, it's submitted. However, if multiple areas are open like Hood Canal and South Sound and maybe 77A chum, then what it's going to do is it's going to give you a list of all the areas that are open and then whether each area has a catch limit or a boat limit or if it's full participation. So for an example, you get a text that says, hey, are you interested in fishing chum October 25th? You say yes. Then you're going to see option 1, option 2, and option 3. Option 1 says South Sound catch limit 12,000 fish. Option 2, Hood Canal catch limit 900 fish. Option 3, 77A chum full fleet, no catch limit. And then you're going to rank yours in order of your preference. So if, let's say, South Sound was your preference, then you would choose number 2. And then, or sorry, if South Sound was your preference, you would choose number 1. And then if 77A was your second, you would choose number 3 in the order that they present to you. And then your last option. So you're just ranking them. Each area in your first choice, second choice, and third choice.
And just getting back to that, weeding out the fishers that actually fish an area. This helps us get down to, you're in South Sound, you want to fish South Sound, it's your preference. We know it. Like we're like, okay, now we're getting a better idea of that. Or are you going to bail on the South Sound opportunity and go to Hood Canal? So at least we can project that appropriately. It's a full fleet over there in Hood Canal, and we know your preference is Hood Canal. Then we're gonna know that and be able to project it better. So.
And then through this, we're saying, hey, you can only fish one area on October 25th. And the ranking lets you tell us your preference. So staff assigns to each fisher their top available choice, working down the registration list. If your first choice fills up, then you'll be assigned to your second choice, and so on.
That work, let's say the gillnet fleet, we probably half the fleet, let's say we start in Good Canal. We fish, we cut off short, and then we run and fish area 10 or 11 on the same day.
You guys are, so that you guys don't overlap though. It's a daytime and versus nighttime. So you're talking about the next day?
So we fish 2 areas on the same day.
In the same 24 hours.
We'll fish, let's say starts at 7 o'clock, let's say 7 to 7.
Yeah.
We may fish it from 7 to 4 in the afternoon. And then we run around to catch the opener that starts at 5.
Right, so those would be 2 separate fisheries. We're talking about a simultaneous open, so
On the same
on the
day.
same day, so it's
Same
like
time.
same time, same day.
More of a sane issue.
Yeah, it's more of a sane issue than it is a gillnet.
But if it's, hey, which area do you want to fish on October 25th? Well, on October 25th, I want to start in the canal, and then I want to wrestle around and fish area 10 on the 25th.
I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah, so this is something, Sam, we can.
Yeah,
to
we
for the
can
gears.
clarify.
We can
and-
clarify that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it is a daytime and a nighttime fishery, so those are actually two separate.
Right, two separate texts.
Yeah,
Yeah, as long as we don't lose that opportunity.
no, definitely.
So I got one question. I wanna back up. You said something about a full fleet.
Mm-hmm.
How do you determine a full fleet?
When our projection with the
Like
current
the-
effort
Like
is,
full fleet sockeye fishing last year at Point Roberts, the highest number was 28 boats. The lowest number was 11. That was a storm event, but prior to that, it was 20. So,
It's basically anyone who signs up preseason, that list, everyone can go.
except that
There's-
they have to verify though, right? How are you gonna allocate without verification?
we do a projection, so the preseason, what we traditionally did before LP is we'd say, okay, we're looking at 20 boats coming in this year to the 7-7A sockeye fishery. And PSC provides a projection of your catch.
Yeah.
We provided our own projection. We say, hey, we're gonna operate within our share with that number of vessels. We'll let them all go. So we won't limit any capacity. And that,
What I'm
and
getting at is we got 180
Mhm.
gillnet licenses for Puget Sound in the state of Washington. Of the 180 gillnet licenses, there's maybe 7 that actually license up fully for the year. Of those 70, that fleet is split between Point Roberts and area 10,
Mm-hmm.
11, and 12.
Yeah.
And that 10, 11, and 12 represents maybe 37 boats. So I'm a little sketchy on when you say full fleet because
We're just not restricting that fishery, right? That's just what we're saying. Hey, it's open up to the full fleet.
Shannon, the 7-7A sockeye fishery
Yeah.
is set up a little bit different too. So as we're getting closer to the April preseason modeling process, I'll be working with you and Bob and Steve to get an idea of effort. And we look at the historical catches and sort of peer splits because predominantly for those fisheries, we use scalers to match up gill nets to purse seine catches. So it's like a fraction of that.
Yeah.
And then it gets pushed through PSC like Nikki said. So it's a more involved process that we'll get through in April.
well, we better move through.
All right, next side, preseason application. I'm just going over what we're gonna change this year. So for last year, the preseason application, everyone had to fill out a separate application for each fishery. So if you wanted to fish 7-7A chum, you had to complete an application. Then if you wanted to fish South Sound chum, you had to complete another application. This year, we're looking to combining it all so you can select all the fisheries that you want to fish for the preseason application. We're still leaving gear type on there. The license number, I just want feedback from you all. Last year, you had to manually enter in your license number. We could potentially do a drop down list to where you just look for your license number, pick it, and then that's that. Because we have all that license numbers online. But the question is whether you prefer that or not, because there were some errors and some people entering in their license number. And
Drop down list sometimes on a small phone with bad eyes.
it's bad.
Hit the wrong button.
Yeah.
well, there's a risk there.
That's a good point. That's why I'm asking this question.
Sure, that would be worse than a typo.
Big issue for you.
You wouldn't know.
Yeah. You would have to line it.
Sometimes there's errors and we would want to verify that.
We might be able to do an in-cell verification to where the verification
Let's
does a
continue.
lookup to
Yeah.
background.
Yeah, we'll look into it a little further. This is just a
Yep.
proposal.
And then the license holder name, I'm just clarifying, you only need one name on there. A lot of people were confused whether they needed to put the owner, the primary, and the alternate. It's just whoever is filling out that application, the owner, the primary, or their alternate, put that one name. An email address and cell phone number. We're thinking about adding an option so someone can enter in 2 email addresses and 2 phone numbers, because a lot of people, you might have like different phones, or you're using another person's phone number that's helping you out monitor the email and or texts. And then fields that are under review that we might remove or revise, we'd love to hear your public comments, is the mailing address, entering that information, your Puget Sound Association that you're affiliated with, your participation type, and your license type. And then next slide. For the in-season registration form or survey, required fields that we're looking into is the license number, whether we need to have that in there or not, just so we can link you to your preseason form. Like when you respond, right? I'm going off of that license number that links you. And then the second question that we're looking at changing is basically, are you interested in fishing so-and-so fishery in week 39? And we'll give the date of that fishery. And then you rank your area of preference. And then we're thinking about adding or keeping an email address in there just so everyone can get an email confirmation back saying, hey, you submitted your application. Or if we use text, we would come up with a way for you to also receive a confirmation. Not sure how that would look yet because we're not sure on the platform for that. And then fields under review is consider removing vessel ID and name, because we can link the license number to what boat is already registered and using the licensing database for that. So we're not sure if we need that information or not.
Well, want to give a speed version, Quasi?
Yeah, sweet. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah.
Go for it. All right, so we'll pause on questions till the very end with these areas. We're just gonna hustle through the next 2 slides. This is what we're looking at, planning and proposing today, tomorrow, and as we go in the next couple weeks. All right, so preliminary season expectations by area. Area 6D, Dungeness Bay, we're looking at a week 39 start. For those of you that are curious, our stat weeks match 2020 right now. So if you have your old 2020 reg at home, the dates, that Sunday date's the same this year.
That is typically always followed that same day start as tribes.
Yep.
So for example.
Yep. So I don't expect any hiccup there. Knock on wood. Okay, area 7A, our sockeye fisheries will be dependent on the southern US payback. Matt, did you want to give a quick blurb right now? And
yeah, I can get into more details if folks have questions, but we did get some of the escapement options from Canada they're considering. So we got this a couple weeks ago, which was a few months earlier than we had in the previous few years. So that was great. So we're working, like I said, we'll work to incorporate that in the April modeling process, and Quasi has here, all of that can change in season 2. So possibly looking at thin margins, as Mickey said earlier. So any specifics later on if folks have questions.
Excellent, thank you. Very similar 7A chum, opportunity to be evaluated in season. The inside chum and Fraser chum triggers. So we have to meet those triggers and critical thresholds before we can do any pre-terminal fishing and Sound Launch Point Roberts. 7B, 7C, our Chinook, Coho, and chum forecast allow for a full schedule this year. The Coho fishery management period is proposed to start in week 34. We've got that proposal from you guys during our kickoff. But like we said at kickoff, We will be moving away from the coho daylight hours. We would be keeping our regular outside of that odd 2025 experiment we tried, coho fishery.
One question on that real
Yes.
quick.
Yeah.
So we're picking up at 10, we gotta be out of the water at 10 a.m.
Correct.
Okay, so that's day.
So this is where our jargon and common knowledge cross. Yes,
Okay.
that is daylight.
So
What we are referring to is our WAC definition of nighttime hours, where it falls between that. So we're just not proposing what Gilnet daylight hours.
so I would be legal
You
to
would-
fish
Yeah,
at change of light in the morning by
Correct.
10 a.m.
Yes.
correct.
Okay, and I could also set my 5-inch at 7 p.m. until it gets dark.
Yeah, that's
The
when the
fishery
fishery
starts at
opens at
7.
7.
Yeah.
Yes. So
That's
Current-
what we call the nightly hours.
Lee hours stay there. But I understand that, yes,
Yeah.
the sun may still be in the sky
Yeah,
during
oh,
part
yes.
of our nightly hours. All right, 8 and 8A, proposed fisheries are gonna be in the public, comment portal. We'll review those as we get them. I was a little disappointed today to hear that the Snohomish coho, looks like we're not meeting the ER on that, so that could move how we think about going forward with any 8 or 8A fishery. 8D, Tulalip Bubble, or Tulalip Bay, excuse me. Coho fisheries are proposed for weeks 38 through 43. In our last handful of years that we've opened that, we've just had no participation, no effort, but we'll keep having our footprint there. Next slide, please. 9A. So we went over the proposed changes to our 1,000-foot creek buffers and modifications. We'll bring those forward with our co-managers. Other than that, the 9A fisheries time and hours remain the same as traditional.
We can, it's always been same day start with the tribe.
Yes.
And in the past, I've always had to call and remind you that to open it, because the tribe typically would always start a week early.
Yep, so I got that noted this in our schedule this year that we are starting. So for whatever reason, the tribe starting a week earlier, and last year we adjusted that. It wasn't a problem with Point No Point Treaty tribe members, so I don't expect a problem this year. But this year it is in the schedule to match the tribal opening.
Okay, thank you.
Area 10, 11, South Sound Chum. We did just touch on all the aspects of limited participation we are working forward to. So full fleet fisheries are scheduled for week 42 based on our current chum management agreement, if you will, with our South Sound tribes, and the trigger that has us above the full fleet threshold. So our per seine days may be delayed towards the end of the week. We are, as you guys are obviously aware, we're really past the time and place that we can think of anything in 10 and 11 as standalone. We're always having to think of how does any move we make in 10 and 11 affect 12 and 12B, our Hood Canal fisheries, since we are trying to balance effort and the optics of our fleet on the water with our co-managers.
Do you know the date of week 42 by chance?
Yep. Week 42 begins Sunday, October 11th.
So I just, before we go down to 12A, just done. I mentioned last meeting about the possibility of pursuing coho retention. I will put that in where's the best way to put that? I mean, to an email to you or into.
We got it. I got it on my notes.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, that was publicly recorded, as long as you're saying it during this meeting,
Yep.
or you're saying it in a letter to the department, or a public comment.
Okay, maybe I'll hit all
of them if you want, yeah.
I mean, I know, maybe, and I don't wanna bog you down too much, but I thought that there was some discussion because of low numbers in Hood Canal to go to coho retention for seines, just to have a strong, a concrete number.
Yes.
And then I think I saw people shudder when I mentioned Persane coho retention in South Sound. And I thought there was maybe some concern about what we're catching, maybe potentially coho, Good Canal bound coho in 10-11, right? Is that the concern?
No, other coho in 10-11. So
Other coho?
Yeah, you want to touch on that? Impacts of coho stocks in 10-11?
I can give me 5 minutes and I'll make.
Well, yeah,
So sorry to put you on the spot. No, but
I mean, I just
the challenges are different between areas, but like you noted, the tribes do want to account for every coho that we intercepted at canal.
So, but I guess my point is that, kind of just looking at the coho run in general, it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Above the 10-year average. And so, I think it's to your point about being consistent with between 10 and 11. So it gets confusing. Okay, well, can I retain coho in Good Canal, but not in 10, 11? Anyway, so we're not going to be catching a lot of fish. I think it was just not to have a trap for the unwary, so. Okay.
No, that makes sense.
Quasi, with week 42 being a little bit early, how far does that possibly reach out into, what week does that possibly get into November, where we could possibly fish before we get into the squally impacts?
Well, I mean, that's my two questions. So week 45 does start November 1st. So that gives us that first week. But I mean, there is a world that we could be out of impacts in week 44 if area the 9 test fishery expansion that we do tells us that.
Could you go into week 46 or?
If we still have impact,
We still have impact.
we put those on the table.
Hypothetically, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
we put proposals on the table. So and the tribes also live within the same level of impacts pre-terminally as well.
We don't have that hard and fast rule, no fishing past 45 anymore, right?
Now it's based on
we have all
impacts.
the
4% of the Nisqually impacts, and also the Nisqually winter chum escapement is below this year. So just to be aware. Forecast.
You scheduled for 46, so we knew.
Yeah, we've tried to move off the whole cut us off at a certain time. We're trying to go down to day of year too. Stop talking about management weeks in general with the tribes. Talk about what's the level of impacts for today's fishery and opportunity. Where do we stand?
21st century. Yes.
Yeah. And the data is great actually. So moving forward on that one.
Yeah, so canal last area won't beat at home, obviously. Gillnet Persane will depend a lot on what's at play in 10 and 11. Bob, thanks for the coho reminder on there. And then our 12C beach seine fishery. Steve, I got your comment from last kickoff meeting. We are first start this year, and we'll propose to go in a week early, which just matches our opening for our pink fisheries when we have our pink fisheries.
One other point for that would be that if the fishery extends into September to that Labor Day, Monday, the move
fishery off of Labor Day.
We did that one year and it was not good.
It was not good to move it on.
Not good to fish on Labor Day.
Oh,
yeah.
That'd be kind of crazy.
No, we did hear that. Yeah.
Should we mention to in 12 and 12B there that the Hazel Point to Misery that we'd like that? I mean, I guess it doesn't hurt to mention it every year, so it doesn't ever go away if we get it or not, but it's probably.
We can be a squeaky wheel on that one. I did some digging over the off season. I mean, I found regulations back in the 90s that had that closure in place. And it doesn't hurt to say that we may object to it, especially if it is more real estate if we have more vessels participating in the canal than at 10, and then we block out this big chunk of water when in reality there's only, I can think of the Hazel Point, and then kind of that Misery Point area that the seiners are making sets, and then the gillnets kind of pick their sets along Misery Point as they're going east. So the we kind of play that game of like, yes, this is a massive chunk of water, but as the fishers know, there's only certain areas of all that acreage that produce sets. So that's just a fine balancing conversation that we have to do with the co-managers.
Why there is that Hazel Point closure? What's the purpose of it?
So as it was told to me, the purpose was to allow tribal gill netting to occur on days that we had a purse seine opener, where it's a hard argument for me to understand is we purse seine 1 day a week and our Hood Canal co-managers are open 7 days a week. So
as Craig mentioned, if it was mainly originally to restrict purse seine, shouldn't the gill net fishery be allowed to fish?
We've attempted that once.
So I'll give you the history on it. There was a gal that was doing her master's thesis, could have been a doctorate on how chum salmon spawn in Big Beef Creek. They put a conservation zone in there. Okay. That's when it all started. It had nothing to do with the tribes.
Well, what the tribes say now is we would like an area to gill net if your purse seines are on the water.
So the department said, well, we're gonna close this down because this gal from the university wants to do this study on how these fry develop coming out of the gravels. And that's when it started.
But there's a directed tribal fishery.
Yeah, and they never opened it up.
Quasi.
There was a couple of years where we got the fish in there under protest, but that's how it all started.
Oh, I'm not.
All right. So the 2026 North of Falcon schedule for the rest of the year is North of Falcon 2 is March 31st in Linwood, and then PFMC is April 7th through the 12th in Portland.
Stay tuned. Yeah, we're having some co-manager meetings over the next few days here. And then we will have sort of more information to give at Linwood about scheduling, how that might play out. Bob, there was a comment about the budget question.
Yes.
So we did receive a conference budget from the legislature. It does have for the fish program, $1 million reduction per fiscal year. And right now our budget analysts and folks, leadership right now are evaluating what that means for our fish program. We did have some discussions on that front. Over the past year, we had reductions in 2025 as well. And our intent and what we've heard from our director is to maintain our co-manager agreements that ensure monitoring does go through to protect our fisheries. So there is that intent from our director and our leadership. But we'll find out more. It's an evolving process because it is like our director said, a draconian cut that was more than expected.
What about hatcheries there?
That's also under review.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Go ahead, Shannon.
I wanna go back to Skagit, talk about Skagit and the sockeye run. I was hoping Ed Elise would be here, but it's not. So what I saw on that board in there, that there was a 45% exploitation rate on Skagit kings. Okay. And so I don't think that there's a problem with having a sockeye fishery using the Skagit kings as an excuse why we can't fish there. And the coho timing is way early, so I don't see there's a problem with, it's a July fishery. So we sure like to have a crack at fishing some sockeyes there between Deception Pass and Rocky Point. And I'll continue to ask for that. You got 70,000 sockeyes projected last year. It was over projected. Met its projection and then some. And I think in our last meeting, they're asking for 5%.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5%.
You know,
What do you think?
I think, and you've heard, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I mean, you've heard Edward and others talk about, well, the Fish and Wildlife Commission policy, sets forth, kind of priority. These are priority. This is a priority recreational fishery. So given that, my suggestion is to go, show up at a commission meeting.
Okay.
And kind of, and lay it out there to the commission, because these guys are bound by, the commission policy.
Correct.
So if you can get.
So we gotta go up a level.
I think so. I mean, that would be my suggestion, because these folks are gonna tell you the same thing, over and over again, and that is they're bound by commission policy. If you go through the commission, state your case, say, hey, we just want a modest, it seems unfair that they get everything, we just want a small crack at it. Otherwise, you're gonna get the same response here. That's suggestion.
And just to keep in mind that commission policy, I believe, is through 2028. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like Bob said, yeah, thank you, Bob, for saying that. That is the general direction from our director and leadership right now.
Yeah.
Kevin, we did bring your proposal forward internally to review with policy. And the general conclusion here is that we are bound by our commission policy at this time. We recognize that the exceptional returns to Baker are a lot of it's going into the lake, and there is a request from gill netters for opportunity to go after it. But like as Bob mentioned, it needs to go through our commission.
Yeah, and the commission policy doesn't say every fish.
Well, that's my point. It's just on
So,
the property.
yeah, so, but again, I think your arguments would be better. If you get a friendly commissioner or two, and there's, some consensus among the commissioners and your staff there, then, that might be an avenue for you to get in. I don't know, just a suggestion.
Kevin, if and Shannon, if you can catch Kyle or Kelly, because I briefed them on this request. They're over there in the big auditorium right now. They will clarify some of our points as well.
Kelly Cunningham
and Kyle Addicks.
Yeah.
Real quick, I'd like to ask a few questions that you guys could answer at the next meeting, or maybe have some input on what's asked right here. In hatchery escapement reports, I've read that it says surplus hatchery fish are to be removed. That is a permit through the federal government, which is part of NOAA. I want to know if any of the commercial salmon rivers that we're using are having removal of surplus fish at the hatchery weirs. Just to see if there's too many upriver, if we're ending up with a surplus of fish and they're being removed to keep out of the hatchery, and they only take what they need. I'd like to see those fish, because we do get a rate of mortality, I believe, biologically, which I've read, and it says this and get rid of them. It said preserve genetic diversity in our wild fish, and at the 10% mortality rate on the sports fishermen, the only fish they're releasing are the wild fish. So they remove some of those wild fish that are to go up and make our stocks better.
Are you also, are you referring to Chinook?
Yes, and that is what we're all looking for. They're our best fish. They're why we fish the hardest. That is, yeah. So if anybody can find out whether removing surplus fish is happening in any of our rivers that are commercially fished. Skagit is not commercially fished. I'd still maybe, if we're getting rid of surplus fish, any wild cohos, into that, because we do breed cohos in a hatchery manner, and they could be removed as they're supposed to be. They're escaped to be caught by sport, commercial, whatever, tribal. So if we can just see if we're getting rid of surplus up there, They manage on a small amount of eggs. The recovery is great. I've also read that those hatchery fish have a low spawn rate, really low. And their genetics are to survive and are brought in as a different fish. And me, myself, I not like sea crossing. The reason I'm talking about this is because we have two things going here, salmon enhancement and we have salmon recovery. Those wild fish are recovered. And where is that split between enhancement and recovery? If we end up with all wild fish in the river, that's what we want is recovery. So I just want to know where that split is, when the percentage of the wild fish will overtake the hatchery fish and turn into a natural thing. Back when it did it on its own, we'll never get there because farming and all that. I just want to know if there's activity to move on. Currently in Skagit, we have a huge wild coho, but we get no opportunity. I heard the Still-Wamish coho aren't coming like they should. Those fish are all caught and let go, whether it's from the Still-Wamish, no sack at all, out from salmon banks all the way into the face of our rivers. So there is a mortality being taken from the wild fish. There is mortality being taken from the hatchery fish. I believe if we kill those hatchery fish before they get upriver and spawn on our fish, we'd be doing better than allowing that to hurt our wild stock. So gill netters going early, sportsmen going early, getting their fish early, they're clean, good fish. That's important for our recovery. The enhancement, sport, recovery, definitely for commercial. Because we get a good product on the market. And it lasts longer as a duration. Hatchery is doing great. That's great. Sports are taking a lot of fish. They get excess fish during the season. Just start us early. Let us kill the fish that are made to kill. And because we are the only ones get fish to the public that don't have a fishing pole. So we need to give them the fish that they've paid for through their taxes. And we are the ones that do it. And there's such a minimal fleet from 2,000 to 200 in the gill net. So we can figure out how to kill those hatchery fish sooner and not let them get upriver. It'll be great.
We'll review this request. And now we have it recorded as well. So thank you.
All of the hatchery surplus information is available online in the hatchery escape report.
I looked for it and I couldn't find the catch record cards. There's no number on them. So
maybe we can provide you some links as well. Go ahead.
I just got one thing on that last slide there where you had no projected time frame for that, not the next one up, about the 12 and 12B schedule currently under review. Are you planning on scheduling a fishery for that? We
will have a
42. Is it all going to be in the?
We'll have a mock schedule that Quasi put forward, a straw man, but why we said it's under review is because we have a co-manager meeting with the Hood Canal tribes tomorrow.
Okay.
And reviewing their concerns.
Forecast.
Yeah.
I know it's a low forecast, but I've seen a low forecast before. I was just making sure that we would have time to schedule for it. What would trigger us to have an opening in like week 42 there?
What would trigger?
Is there a test fishery?
I mean, right now it's outside the ISU window, right? So that's the first issue from the tribes that it's not really occurring during a time where it's informational or helpful to understand a chum abundance. But the other piece is that it's a footprint for our fishery. So I think there's value to both points, and we're going to discuss those tomorrow. And again, I say come to Linwood because I'll have more firm answer on that.
No, I just so many times we look at this as paper fish, and I kind of.
We don't look at it like that viewpoint. So we see the value to all the traditional weeks that we have offered, despite the timing, and we have to discuss what those mean for the tribes as well.
I guess as long as it gets scheduled in there, but what happens at that point in time, we still have a chance to. I mean, we still would be able to go fishing if
it's pretty early. I'll say that.
You never know.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you all for coming down today. Really appreciate the time and the comments. And We've actually had quite a few emails and comments from the fleet, and
Yeah.
this has been actually a really great start to North Falcon from the commercial group. Like your attendance and your communication has been spot on, so thank you for that.